Hello everybody, it's Courtney Cooper and here we are at Training Tip Tuesday, noon on Tuesdays. I'm the owner of C Square Farm and a partner in Excel Star Sport Horses and a 5-star event rider as well. As a lot of you know, we have a mixed program here at C Square Farm. We have a small breeding operation. We also have my performance horses that have gone up through the 5-star level at Kentucky. And then we also have sale horses. So we have a variety of nutritional needs. And so today we thought we'd talk about our feeding program, what we found works best for us. As you can see, we use Purina products. We've been with Purina over 25 years. Their products really help our horses and they satisfy a wide range of needs that we have. We also are big believers in NupaFeed, which is a magnesium supplement. They're a great company to deal with, and Scott, who owns the company, would be happy to talk to you about their products. They also have a product that helps horses with pep if they need them to be more peppier, but that is usually never a problem for me. So let me tell you a little bit about how we feed and what we feed. So we have this board. And it sort of, you can see, has the horse's name and then what they get. You can see these are all based on scoops. We don't do weight, but we do scoops, standard 3-quart scoop. And each horse has something different based on what they need. You can see that some of them, like our River Star horse, he gets his food wet and he gets it on the ground because sometimes he decides to inhale it up his nose and then he goes into a coughing fit. So we found that if we can feed it on the ground, that serves him best. In terms of other things that they need, you can see that we have a new horse, Thistle, who might make a surprise appearance at the end of the video. And Thistle doesn't really get anything because she's a crossbred. But she does get a ration balancer and then also a scoop of E and selenium. We'll feed the horses supplements if they need them, but generally I find that the products right now that we feed with Purina are very well balanced, so we don't really need to do a whole lot of extra supplementing. On that note, if you all have questions about any products that you may use and want to ask me if I've had experience with them, what my experience has been, I'll be happy to talk to you guys about that, so please feel free to write a message. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what kind of animals you're feeding. So the other thing you can see is some of our horses get NupaFeed, and then the river horse also gets a gastro supplement, UGuard, as well as he is on beet pulp. We feed some of our horses beet pulp just to give them extra calories. And then also he likes his food wet, so we found if we can give him some beet pulp, it helps. So let's talk more about how we determine what types of feed that they get. You can see most of our horses are on strategy. We'll pull out a bag here in a second of strategy. Then we have the Ultium product, which is more of a processed feed. And then we have senior. We have several older horses here, except for she's actually no longer on senior. We have a 27-year-old mare who's out with Tag, his mother, but I have a feeling Tag steals her food, and that's why we took her off as senior. And then obviously we have growth for the babies, which is specially designed for lactating mares, so that's why the mares get them, as well as the foals. And then this extra column is for a protein supplement that we use. Purina has a product called Super Sport, which allows you to feed extra protein where the horses that are working might need that to help with their top lines and their muscles and the balance, but they don't need a lot more grain. And so you can see usually they're on my performance horses, River, David, the Time to Shine horse, Tag and Potter get some. Tag, obviously my 5-star horse, and Potter is his 3-year-old great nephew, I believe, is who he is. but he's a big gangly horse. Foxy, a new young horse we have, and then Griffin and Farley, also a relation to Tag. So they get some extra protein on their feed to help make them round and help with their top line. So in terms of how we feed and what we feed, and if we decide if we use Ultium or if we use Strategy, let's look at a couple bags of grain. Any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Robin. Do you feed any probiotics or additional supplements for gastric ulcers?
So, a lot of you, if you followed me through my career, know that Who's a Star had a very sensitive GI tract. And, bye, Allie. Bye. Had a very sensitive GI tract. And so he was on a tube of Gastricard every day while he was competing. He actually went to a couple of tubes of Gastricard at different points in his life. We're lucky now that the Purina products have a. Are you okay?
Someone called in the middle of the video.
Sorry. Oh no, are we back on?
Yeah, we're back on.
Oh, sorry about that. Someone called. And so the Outlast takes care of a lot of that product. You can also feed Outlast as a supplement if you've got a horse that doesn't have a lot of get a lot of grain. So we've been using Outlast. The other thing that we've used is we've had horses on misoprostol when they've had pyloric ulcers. That's a drug that's used to cure those things. And we've done different things over time. So yes, we do feed some gastric supplements, but like I said, we found with the new Outlast supplement in the Strategy in the Ultium products that we don't have to do that as much. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. So here we're going to turn over a bag of Ultium and then we're going to put a bag of Strategy. Where is the tag? Where? Tag. Well, that's no help whatsoever. But we can look at.
There's a tag on the Strategy bag.
There's a tag on the Strategy, but there's not a tag on the Ultium, which is that's not what I wanted to say. But let's look at the. Oh, here we go. On the side of the back.
Ah.
So if we compare, rip this off. If we compare the Strategy is a 14% pellet in protein, whereas, I don't know if you can zoom in on that, whereas the Ultium is actually a lower protein at 11%. But then if you go down and you look at crude fat, Strategy is at 6%, whereas Ultium is at 12%. So if I've got a horse, for example, that is on the thinner side and maybe doesn't need the protein for muscle building, but it's a little thinner, then I'll put them more on Ultium than I will on Strategy. For example, the Time to Shine horse and the First Class horse, Griffin and David, they're very similar in the way they look, but Griffin almost always carries less fat than David. And so David gets a scoop and a half of Strategy, and for Griffin we found that if we split it 3/4 of a scoop of Strategy with 3/4 of a scoop of Ultium, that he keeps his weight on a little bit better than if we just keep him on Strategy. The other thing that we like to keep in mind is as the seasons change, our feeding changes. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm just going to feed, half a scoop of Strategy to my horses all the way through. We have one lovely mare, TikTok, who can be a little bit of a fireball. She is definitely on the magnesium supplement because it helps her keep a little bit better focused. And in the winter, when it's cool, she goes down to getting just a handful, almost 1/3 of a scoop. Because if she gets more grain than that, she gets a little flighty, she gets a little bit up, and so that doesn't serve her well in her work. Now that may change as she gets older and she gets more educated and she gets more trained, but for my safety and her trainability, I'd rather feed her less hard grains and more hay, and then keep her weight on that way. Any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay. Feel free to ask about supplements or any other questions, guys, or hard feeders that you may have. The other thing is, you may find that, for example, on the river horse, we found that doing a mix of Ultium and Strategy didn't help him. He got fizzy. And so we went back to the half a scoop of Strategy, which is sort of the way I start almost all of my horses, is on half a scoop of Strategy, and then I take away and build as they go. But we found if we added more grain, he got fizzy. Even if we added the magnesium supplement, that didn't really seem to help him. And then if we went to Ultium, that didn't really help him. And so we ended up using beet pulp to add some balance of calories to his diet. And it's not something I do a lot, obviously. He's the only horse that we have on beet pulp. But if you've got a horse that needs a little extra bulk, it's certainly an option. Now, for the babies, they get their own special food. They get growth. And it has, I believe, actually, where do we have the tag on that? It's on that. Thank you, Purina. So they get 15% protein, and then their fat is relatively high at 9.5%, so it's in between the two. But this just has a lot of extra ingredients for pregnant mares, lactating mares, and then weanlings and yearlings. And then as we go, we change it out, and then once the young horses are in their yearling stage, we will go and change them over to Strategy. Question?
Yes, we have a question from Margaret Rizzo McKelvey.
Yep.
Do you track each horse's hay consumption too, or do you just let them eat as much as they want?
So, when we're home in Pennsylvania, we have a great hay supplier who has supplied us with hay for their family for over 20 years, so I know that we always will get quality hay and they'll stand by it. We use a Timothy hay or an orchard grass hay when we're home for the majority of horses. I feel that the horses need hay in their stalls all the time to keep them busy. And while the hay provides a certain amount of calories, it's also there for boredom. And so, horses aren't designed to be in stalls. They're designed to be out grazing. And so we try to keep hay in front of them. Generally, we'll give them 2 or 3 flakes in the morning before we feed their hard grains, so they have something in their stomachs. Then we feed again at lunch, 2 or 3 flakes. Then again, we feed at dinner time, again before the grains at about 5. And then lastly, we'll do a late night check at about 9, and they'll get a couple more flakes to get them through the night. The mares and the foals will get alfalfa. And depending on where they are in the process of their pregnancy and in how old the foals are, they have different caloric requirements. And so if a lactating mare is looking skinny or a pregnant mare is looking skinny, we'll throw her more alfalfa because they tend to eat that up pretty quickly. I'm not a big believer in feeding tons of grain because, again, horses, in my opinion, weren't designed to eat a lot of grain, and it leads you back to what Robin was talking about, gastric ulcers and problems with their digestive systems. So the mares and the foals and the old lady, the 27-year-old that we were talking about, they get alfalfa, and then everybody else gets Timothy. And then as the foals who are almost ready to be weaned, we might do a little special shot of them. They will get a little bit of alfalfa, and then they will go to straight Timothy, maybe with a little bit of alfalfa on top through the winter, depending on how cold and harsh the winter is. That's another factor. If you've got, for example, we have our show horses. Next week, I think Training Tip Tuesday is going to be about clipping and how to keep your horse's coat looking good over the winter. So if people want to give me questions about that, please let me know. But also keeping weight on over the winter. We go south, as many of you know, to Aiken. If you'd like to come to Aiken, let us know. but we leave the foundation mare, who's 27. We'll leave Tag, who is 17, coming on 18 this year, and then we'll leave the 3 yearlings. That'll then be 2-year-olds, and then the foals, that'll be yearlings next winter, this coming winter. And so we'll leave all of them, and then we have 1 pregnant mare. So we'll leave all of them here, and so obviously that is a huge range of food needs, and it's really easy, especially with the older horses, to get behind the 8 ball in the winter and with the foals, and so you almost like to have them a little bit heavier come the end of November, December, so that you're not playing catch up. You also want to make sure that with the older horses especially, they start to not thermoregulate so well, and so they get colder quicker, so you want to keep them revved up so you don't lose calories by them trying to heat themselves. And so it's always very important for us to usually increase their grain sort of as we get, for those horses that aren't necessarily working but are retired, to increase their feed program as it gets colder and that the grass loses some of its nutritional content. We tend to throw hay here in the top fields and actually in the back as well as the fall comes down and as the fields start to look a little bit less lush, for lack of a better word. Any other questions right now?
No, not yet.
Okay. So, other supplements that I have used, people ask me if I do a bran mash. That was a question that came up with someone once a week. I have done that at different points in my career, but they have found that that doesn't really, it makes you feel better, but the horses actually get off their systems when you feed them something so different than they're used to. But I'll throw apples and carrots into their grain. And so that's sort of a look into our feed program. And like I said, if other people have questions, please let me know. You have the extruded, like I said, the extruded feeds that make it easier to eat the Ultium growth, and the regular Ultium and the senior are all extruded feeds as well, so they're a little easier to digest for the older horses or the younger horses. And like I said, the strategy for the performance horses, the professional formula is what we use, and we use a whole lot of it. So let's go out and look at the foals. That way, if anybody has any questions, they can certainly ask. And you can also see this is our setup for any sort of stable management, lime, and then we use a product called Stall Dry for the babies' stalls, because we find the lime is a little bit too acidic for them, and it might be. So the other thing is we keep all of our grain outside of the barn so the horses can't get into them. This used to be an old dairy barn, so this used to be actually where they keep the milk, so we call this the milk house. And let's see if we have any American foals. Let me actually, Reese, why don't you go that way, and then I'll get some grain and see if I can get some. A day because they were all lactating to now getting 2 because they've all carried their weight very well. As you can see that they're all in good weight and good form, and you can see
oh goodness
you can see that Ghost has decided that he's going to start giving Noah a little bit what for. He's growing up, and this is kind of unusual actually for Noah to be the one that's not giving everybody a little bit of trouble. So in the next couple of weeks we will actually wean Ziva, who's coming up the hill with her mother Ellie, and then we'll also do DJ, who's just arrived, not to get in the mix here. But if you want, can you pan and see the babies? You can see that little ghost is actually losing his full hair. And not exactly the most opportune time to lose your full hair when you're getting ready to come into winter. But that's what he's doing. And he's going to be a lovely liver chestnut. And you can see Ziva's growing really big and strong. We probably would have weaned Ziva already, except for her great aunts don't really like her. And so our thought process is that we have to make sure that she has no one to protect her, and that DJ is also gone, because DJ really doesn't like her. We just think it's because she's so pretty. Anyway, but Bix is actually the leader of the herd. Do we have any other questions?
Yes. Margaret asked, can your local feed store rep help decide what's best to feed?
Yeah, it's what any of the Purina reps that we've dealt with over time are happy to come out and talk to you about specific concerns that you might have on any of the individual horses. And we usually visit with them right before we go to Aiken, when we get back, and then as we go into winter, just to make sure that everybody is looking fit and well. Hi, baby ghost. So, we have one other sneak peek today. I'm going to show you Thistle. Thistle just arrived last night, or I guess 2 nights ago.
Yes.
And she's a new arrival. She's a crossbred mare, and we just think she's really cute. So we left her on cross ties. I'm not sure if she's going to be standing the way we want her to be, but here she is. Hi, Thistle. How are you? Oh, you're such a beautiful girl. So here she is. So Thistle is a new sale horse from us, and as you can see by her bodacious body, she does not get a lot of grain. She's our girl on a handful. So that's Training Tip Tuesday. Hi, Darce. Training Tip Tuesday for this week. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to write us in the remarks, or to feel free to leave us a message on any of our Facebook pages or our Instagram pages. And we look forward to seeing you next week to talk about clipping. Anybody else, any other questions before we sign off?
No.
Well, stay safe and healthy. We look forward to talking to you guys later.